Welcome to the Noir Poise podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life. While we don't claim to have all the answers, we're dedicated to delving deeper into different topics through meaningful conversations. As a duo, we bring different viewpoints to the table, enriching our joint journey towards growth and poise.
Join us as we explore and unlearn to relearn while striving to navigate life with poise. I've noticed a trend on the internet, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but for those who are listening or who have been listening, you may have heard us say that we haven't been like on social media up until this podcast came out and we kind of like started the podcast page. And so I've been managing it since we started it for the most part, and I've noticed a trend when it comes to relationship topics. I often find that one gender is bashing the other. And when I first started seeing it, I was just like, okay, everyone has their own opinion, their own perspective. Some people are out here have bad experiences, may have been hurt. And so people walk around hurt and create this perception that all women are the same or all men are the same. But it's been quite some time now. And I realized that this is a constant thing. And so we had a conversation with some loved ones not too long ago about this, and they were like, yeah, it's a thing. And I was not aware of it, to be honest with you.
There's always a battle between men and women.
Not necessarily that there's a battle, more so that there's always like a negative clash. Men are constantly talking about how much women are terrible and how much women are trash, and women are always talking about how much they feel like there's no good men out there, men are trash, so on and so forth. So it's a constant bashing type of situation, regardless of, at least this is my experience. So I don't know if it is maybe different, but what I've seen so far is, regardless of what the conversation is, what the topic's about, when it has to do with genders and relationships, one gender is often bashing the opposite one. Because of course, I'm going to have my own perspective as a woman and you're going to have your own perspective as a man. But I just feel like there's a lack of awareness that, one, not all are the same, and two, that while we don't agree and we don't see things the same way, that we can compromise and meet in the middle, in a sense.
Out of curiosity, have you noticed that it's more one side than the other?
It's both. At first, I thought it was more so women bashing men. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so these women are probably scorned, which makes sense. They probably just put all men in one category. But no, I've seen a lot of content of men bashing women. And I've showed you some of them where I'm just like, yo, what is up with this? And there are some videos where it's like, okay, clearly the type of man that's speaking in that video just doesn't match with the type of woman he's trying to have a conversation with, and vice versa. The type of woman is trying to have a conversation with a certain type of man. And it's like, okay, you guys are not on the same page. You're trying to have a conversation with someone who doesn't even have the same mentality as you, in a sense. There's also a lot of videos where it's just like, no, they're bashing each other.
I actually had a conversation with someone recently about that, about men just going off on women just in general. I think a lot of men have gotten to a point where they feel like they have to step up for themselves. They've heard women bashing men for so long that some men are actually like, fed up and like, nah, I'm going to defend my own, or I'm going to defend myself, kind of thing. Do you think that's part of it?
I could see why that could be part of it, to be honest, because I'm trying to think of my experience as far as like what I've witnessed in my upbringing, like even in like music and media, so on and so forth. I feel like it was more common to see women bashing men because, and this could just be a misconception, but oftentimes men were hurting women when I was coming up, rather than the other way around. And I think we got to a place where now women are trying to be like men, where they're like, I'm not letting a dude play me. I'm going to make sure I play you first. And it's kind of been like this constant back and forth battle where women are trying to be savages and men are being scorned now too. So, I mean, I don't know, but I could see that being part of it, but I honestly don't think that's entirely what it is.
So what do you think it is? Because like you said, it's been for so long that women were bashing men because of their experiences. Mm-hmm. So why do you think now all of a sudden it's the other way around?
Well, it's both ways, but I think the media has a lot to do with it. I think we are being brainwashed to believe that, one, we don't need the other. Two, there's no good men or women out there. Three, kind of like you can do it all by yourself. Like you don't need anyone kind of thing. I think that perception has kind of like infiltrated the way that we think and the way that we act and view the opposite gender. We've had conversations like this before when it comes to like gender roles. I think because we're losing respect for one another, it's then changing the way we view the importance of one another.
I could definitely see that. I do think the media plays a major part in it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Twitter account, but I just literally use it to follow news to learn different things. But even on there, sometimes if I fall into some type of celebrity news, I'll notice that, but I haven't noticed that too much. But I still think the media paints a picture, and particularly I've noticed it for Black women and Black men.
Yes,
they really try to put a wedge there. I personally do believe that you don't necessarily need anyone to survive. The opposite gender could take you to another level, but you don't necessarily need anyone to survive. But I think the media paints a picture that if you end up in a relationship, your life is going to take a turn for the worse.
That actually leads to my question, because I was going to ask you, do you think men can live without women and women can live without men?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me rephrase it, because obviously, yes, we can live without anybody. But when I say can live without, I mean, do you think life would be as good for the person without the other gender?
That's definitely a different question and a deep question. I would say in that aspect, no.
Okay, that's my point.
I'll elaborate.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something naturally in us, just like a woman will get to a certain age and she'll, for the most part, feel like she needs a child. I think it's just built within us to have a family. So a man may in his 20s, even in his 30s and into his 40s may feel like, I'm good being a bachelor, whatever the case is. But I think there comes a time where nature just starts calling you and telling you like you need to settle down, you need to you need to find someone. So I do think you get a better quality of life when you have someone. But
so you're saying you think the quality comes from having a family, not necessarily having the opposite gender to do life with?
I think the opposite gender definitely does bring in better quality, but I think having a family brings in an even greater quality.
Okay, because that's my point. That's what I was trying to get at with the whole living without one another, because obviously, like I said, we could survive without anything and anyone. We just got to put our mind to it. But I don't believe that we can thrive without one another. And it's not even in an aspect of just a relationship. If you look at a family dynamic, you compare a household that has a stable mom and dad versus a household that's missing one parent. Even if that one parent is stable, you notice a difference. And so that's what I mean when I say we can't thrive without each other. It's in all aspects. A woman needs a man to thrive. A child needs a mother and father to thrive. There's just a difference. Like, it's natural to have both parts. I don't know if people are angry, if people are just hurt, if it is the brainwash, if it's all of it. I don't know. But what I've noticed is there's a heavy lack of unity. And I do think a lot has happened that has trained us mentally to lose respect for one another. And a simple example, and this may be controversial, but like I always say, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. Even with the concept of feminism, and I tell you this all the time. If you're a feminist, power to you. Go ahead, sis, do you. But I understand the concept of where it originated and why it was necessary when it started. But we've come to a point now in society where it is being infiltrated with negativity. And it is creating, like you said, a wedge between genders. It's making women feel like, I'm trying to find the right words. It's making women resent men It's making women jealous of men. It's making women bash men. And I think the same way it's doing that with women, it's also making men look at the women who have that mentality. So I think that coming up now, like in a heavy way, along with when we were coming up, it was all about like the independent woman. Like the independent women are so praised these days, and there's nothing wrong with being an independent woman. I think it's great. It's great up until you realize you can't even coexist with someone and realize that there's compromise, there's balance. So I think those things tied all together has created chaos within society when it comes to genders. Like it's almost, if I'm completely honest, based on what I see online, it comes off like men don't like women and women don't like men. And at this point, I'm just like, all right, so you clearly want to go for the other team, bro. That's what it's coming off like. It's coming off like women want to date women and men want to date men.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't know about the
That's
that
what
part,
it comes
but
off at, because it's the way I'll show you more videos just so you see what I mean. But like the way they disrespect one another and they bash one another and they create these scenarios in their mind about the opposite gender. And don't get me wrong, like I said, everyone has their own opinion based on their experience. But at some point, you got to ask yourself, are you stereotyping? Are you speaking out of hurt and frustration?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is just my take on it. I think the frustrating part about what people are saying online is that they're taking a truth and making it seem like it's the only truth.
What do you mean by that, though?
Like, I'm just gonna take and I don't want to go to the extremes of things like, you know, women cheating or men cheating, because that's obviously like everyone's on the same page for that. But some of the things that I've heard, like for example, men say would be, for example, women are nagging, like they're too nagging, they're never satisfied or something like that. That is something that could be true in some context.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's all the time. That is a truth that they take and make it seem like if you're in a relationship, no matter what you do for your woman, she's never going to be happy, never going to be satisfied. So why bother?
Right.
Same way with men, where I've heard women say things such as, you know, men are lazy. It's like, yeah, you will find some lazy men. Even me, sometimes I could get lazy. I could do something, you know, half-heartedly and not put my all into it, but that's not everything. So that's what I mean by I feel like they'll take,
that's everyone in different ways,
right? Yeah. But I feel like they take a small truth and just maximize it as this is the be all end all, and this is what you could expect from the opposite gender. I think it all boils down to insecurities. I've heard both sides of the arguments for men, where men, they just go and bash women, and then men who praise women. And one thing I noticed is the men who praise women are more secure than the men who bash women. You can tell, like you said, not everyone's story is the same, but sometimes you hear these people talk and you're like, you're clearly coming from a hurt place. Yes. Which is fine.
Exactly what it sounds like.
But when you come from a hurt place, you're naturally going to have a different perspective. Your mind is just trying to protect you.
Right.
So you're going to attack. Yeah, you're going to attack before you get attacked.
Right.
But when I hear men who are more secure in their space, in their emotions, they're able to say certain things like, yeah, you know, women could be blah, blah, blah. But I've also noticed that they tend to provide answers. Like, it's not just using the same example. You know, women could complain a lot or whatever the case is, but they'll say, if you hear your woman complain, try to figure out what they're complaining about or what's the real reason that they're complaining, and then solve it from there. I think it all boils down to insecurity. I can't speak for the opposite gender, of course, but I think from a male's point of view,
I think I agree with
that's
that,
what it is.
with the insecurity situation. I do definitely think insecurities have to do with it, because like I said, you can tell people are scorned, but I do think it's heavily what we're taught. You know what I mean? Even my personal experience, I tell you all the time, I was raised by a single mom. So for me, I saw my mom take care of me and my sister, and I also saw her go to work. I saw her go to school when necessary. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the ideal situation, but growing up and watching that, it instilled something in me, knowing that like I'm going to do it all. And so I had the independent woman mindset where like, I don't need a man, I could do it by myself. You know what I mean? Like, you get to a point where you don't realize where it's becoming a little toxic in a sense. So, and this is a conversation we've had before where I've had difficulty finding balance with you when it comes to certain things, because I'm so used to doing certain things on my own. And so at a time right now, we've talked about this, where I'm not bringing in income the way I was before. And so it's uncomfortable for me. But naturally, you're looking at me like, well, this is normal. like it's okay kind of thing, but it's not comfortable for me. And I think that's because of what has been instilled with me growing up. Like I grew up hearing Destiny's Child sing all the ladies independent, you know what I mean? Like when you grow up and that's what you hear, you look at TV and that's what you see, and then you add to it that there's not really a male figure, it instills something in you that you don't recognize until you have to deal with a different type of situation. The reality is there are a lot of women out there that grew up in single parent households. It's unfortunate, but that has happened pretty often in our communities. And even when the father is present, unfortunately, due to circumstances, he's not always physically present because he has to go out and work and bring home certain things. So, point I'm trying to make is I think upbringing has a lot to do with it. And then you add in the media and what was taught to us. And then you add in now a woman who had my type of experience goes out into the world and she's then hurt by multiple men. It's going to create a negative perception of men in your mind, whether you like it or not. Like it takes a very mentally strong and compromising type of individual to go through that and have bad experiences on top of it in dating and still have a positive mindset on men. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that is a factor. I think a lot of the people out here in our generation, that's their story. And so they have that mentality.
But do you think that's just the media maximizing an issue that's already there, or do you think is more so as no, the issue was always as great as it is now, it's just a light is just being shined on it?
You're gonna hate my answer, but I think both. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a little bit of both. I think there are a lot of situations where the issue was there and you feed it and it kind of increases. But I do think there are situations where some people are brainwashed into having a certain mentality. It may not be their personal experience, but all it takes is to hear one story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know people who grew up in healthy homes and didn't have bad situations, but all it took was hearing one bad story from a girlfriend. It automatically, men are trash. You know what I mean? Or women are this, or women, like, I think we like to put labels on people and create stereotypes.
Could I ask you, when you've heard just men say certain things about women, has it ever personally offended you?
No, because I don't usually think I fall in that bracket. But when I do disagree, I say I disagree. I've gotten into debates with men in regards to their mentality and what they think of women, because a lot of it isn't true. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be a little bit of truth to certain things. The same way I could walk around and say certain things about men, you know, and there's going to be some men that fall in that bracket. But the reality is it's not all men. So that's always my issue. So would I say offense? I wouldn't say I was offended. I was more so like, no, I gotta make you realize that what you're saying sounds ignorant.
Like it bothered you?
No, I wouldn't say it bothered me.
Because I'm thinking the reason why
maybe I want to make sure
bothered as in like you thought about it after you watched the video. Like let's say you're scrolling or whatever, you hear a clip or you see a clip, and 5 minutes pass after you've seen the clip, you're still thinking about it, like, I can't believe he said that, or why would he say that, or I wish I could have answered him by saying XYZ. Because you said like,
I don't think that's offense though, because not necessarily no. Everything you said, no. It's more so I wish I could provide my take on it so he can see a different perspective. That's more so what it is. But when I think of offense, I think of like, I'm hurt by what was said. Because I think when we're offended, it's because we can relate to it. At least my perspective. I feel like sometimes when we're offended, it's because it hits a nerve. Like it triggers something. When I've heard things like this, it's not that it offends me. It's more so like, dag, but that's not all the way true. I wish I could give my perspective so we can have a conversation about it. It's more so like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not on some like, I'm offended that you're saying this about women. Because the way I think, and you know this, like, it's never one or the other. I can see both sides. You know what I mean? When I hear men say certain things, I'm like, I can understand to some extent because I've seen women with that kind of mentality, or I've heard of situations where I'm just like, I could see where he's getting that from and just taking it way too far. And the same with women. When I hear women say certain things about men, I'm like, I can see why you think that, but it's not all the way true. I mean, you're my husband. You know this. When I'm around men and we're having certain conversations, they'll think I'm a male advocate. When I'm around women, it's the opposite. And it's not that I'm an advocate for anyone. I'm more so like, okay, I see what you're saying, but let's look at this perspective because maybe we're not thinking of it entirely the way that it is. So I like to look at the gray area. So that's why I say it's not necessarily that I'm offended. It's more so like, dag, I wish I could have a conversation with you because maybe there's something I don't know. But at the same time, I wish I could say certain things that'll make you see a different perspective, because at the end of the day, there are different type of men and there are different type of women.
Yeah.
And if your experience is what your experience is, then that's your experience with that type of man that you keep attracting. And the same with a man who keeps attracting that kind of woman.
Yeah.
I said this like in so many episodes, but we really attract what we are. So to say that all men are this or all women are that, I think is just too far. Is there truth to it? Yes, but it's not true for everyone.
Yeah. I've honestly been offended before.
Really?
Yeah, watching or hearing a clip of women saying, well, this specific thing actually bothered me. Men are dumb. And I know it's everyone has heard that before. And
I don't mean to laugh.
If I'm being honest,
you've told me that.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, men do a lot of dumb stuff, but women do a lot of dumb stuff too. I think it's just that society or men are more forgiving when it comes to a woman doing a dumb thing, but it seems like the moment a man messes up, they're labeled as dumb, which, to be quite honest with you, is fine. But I think I think the problem comes when women call men, for example, dumb, and then they expect the man to just treat them.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's kind of like, I think we mentioned this in an episode in the past, where one of the greatest forms of love you can give a man is respect.
Right.
So automatically when you're doing that, you're
disrespecting.
You're disrespecting him and expecting him to just sweep it under the rug or just ignore it and just like, deal with it. I
get that.
And I think little jabs like that, I think typically, because I've done this before where I won't say anything in the first time, but if it keeps happening,
it builds up.
Yeah, it builds up. And it's like when I hear women say that, it irritates me because it's like you're the same one that's expecting a certain level of, how could I say, what was the word I'm
intelligence?
No, you're expecting a certain level of treatment from
I see what you're
from the man, but yet you're insulting him. So the way it plays in my head, and I think in most men's head, is I'm disrespecting you, but you're still gonna treat me right. It's like, bro, like you better go find somebody else. So I think little things like that has caused a lot of men to just become frustrated, and that's why you might hear men speaking up more, and even if they choose the wrong audience too, because I've seen so many videos of men talking to a certain demographic of women who are young and not really mature, and it's like, what real answer are you? You're a 36-year-old man talking to a 19-year-old. It's like, it doesn't make sense. But I think the point is that men feel attacked, and they feel like they're not getting the respect they should get off the bat, and now they have a platform to speak, so those who are speaking. But that's something that when I've gone through videos and I've heard women making comments, I'm like, why is it that you rarely hear praise about a man? And there are times where you send me videos, fathers and all that, which is,
there are praise videos. It's just, it's usually coming from people who are in happy relationships. It's never like single women like, oh, I love men, they're great. The positivity tends to come from people who's having a positive experience.
Right.
That's the reality.
Right.
But to go back to what you said, because you said you've heard things like that and you get offended, and that's what I mean with
I used to get offended. I should say that.
It goes back to what I said. You get offended because you have an experience with it. Do you get what I'm saying? I remember I used to say that. I used to say it as a joke. It wasn't like I was legitimately calling all men like, y'all are dumb. I
think it was legitimate.
No, it wasn't. It was not. It was always in a joking manner. Don't get me wrong. They say there's truth in every joke.
I'm getting mad. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
There's truth in every joke, but we've had that conversation where you told me that that's offensive to men, and I'm just like, oh really? I honestly, I'm gonna be real.
Yeah, I remember when I told you that.
I never thought. I've said it in front of so many friends' husbands and boyfriends.
I'm sure we all just like,
in a joking way.
But when I told you that, I think it was your sister you called, and you're like, men don't like when you call them dumb. And I'm looking at her like
they don't like it.
who would actually like it? Yeah.
But I guess, like I was saying, it's because I always said it in a joking manner. Yeah. So it's kind of like, how many times have I heard men say women are annoying? Yeah. Women talk too much. Women nag. You just said it. Women complain. It doesn't offend me. But I think it doesn't offend me because
it's true. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna cut that out.
No. Annoying. it doesn't offend me to hear that because, like I told you before, there's truth to certain things.
Yeah.
It's just not, I don't have a heavy experience with it for it to offend me.
Right.
Whereas you just said you had an experience with that phrase that women use pertaining to men, and that's probably why it offends you so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oftentimes, although men are saying it like they be so serious, but it's always like in a manner where it's like, ha ha ha, because women. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's never like I see a man like cursing out a woman and he's saying these things. Just like I don't hear women cursing out a man and saying those things. It's always like in a like teasing type of manner. So I guess that's why in the back of my mind, I never thought it would be like OD offensive because it's in a teasing way. Just like you guys say things about us all the time. I mean, I've heard you and guys say things all the time. But to go back to that phrase, and it could fall with different type of phrases, I've just learned the importance of choice of words. It's not that men are dumb. We've had this conversation. Men don't pay attention, and I'm not going to say all men, but a lot of men don't really care to pay attention to as much details as the women may pay attention to. And the same way with the phrase about women being nagging and annoying, it's the same thing. So to men, they're just like, we're fine. Like to you guys, it's not a big deal. But to the woman, it's like, no, but it is. You know what I mean? So I guess it's a choice of words rather than saying things like men are dumb, women are nagging. I could see why people would see those statements as being offensive. Women are nagging because they care. If she's nagging you, you think it's nagging. She's just trying to make you see what she sees. That's basically what it is. I don't like the way you're looking at me. I'm gonna be honest with you.
No, I'm just trying to process it and think of it because I don't think that's true. It? Not, I do get it, but I just don't think that's true all the time. And I think that there has to be a better way.
What
you said, like when women nag because they care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying like there has to be a better way.
Well, it's not, I'm sure some women nag just to nag, you know what I mean? But it goes back to what I just said. Like there's not a one size fit all. This is the situation all the time. At the end of the day, you have to know who you're dealing with and understand that person and know what their intent and where they come from and why they're doing what they're doing. There might be men out there who don't care as much. If I was to joke around and be like, men are dumb. You care, so I don't use that statement anymore. From the time you told me, I'm like, all right, this is a statement I have to get out of. I have to get this word out of my vocabulary if it's offensive to men kind of thing. And it's the same with nagging. Like some women, the man may think it's nagging because he doesn't want to hear it. That's basically what men think is nagging. If it's information that he is uninterested in hearing, or it's information that you've told him more than 2 times, it's considered nagging. But when you stop to look at someone else's perspective and you put yourself in their shoes, it's not nagging. They're reminding you of something. Or maybe they really see potential in you doing this particular thing. Or maybe they asked you 10,000 times for real. And they're just like, yo, how many times I gotta ask this brother? And I saw a post one time that said, like, you think she's annoying you by saying it over and over. You don't think she's annoyed by having to say it over and over? Yo, the blink stare is giving me in this episode, though. I wish they saw your face.
No, I get it.
Again, this is not an all the time situation. Healthy relationships. If you specifically ask the man, what is she nagging about? You sit there and you listen to him explain to you what she's nagging about, and then you go back and you speak to the woman about the same situation. What have you been asking him to do or telling him that maybe he should look into? Whatever it may be, you're going to get 2 different perspectives. The point I'm trying to make is you think she's nagging, she thinks she's helping. When you're in a relationship where she cares and she loves you, that's usually the case. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying like that's every single thing. And when it goes to like statements like men are dumb, it's wrong. I feel bad. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't believe your apology. No, I'm kidding.
I really do feel bad. That's what I mean. When was the last time I said that statement? I don't think I've said it in a very long time.
I'm sure you thought it though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But now it's not like again, I said it's the choice of words. You know I don't think you're dumb. You know what I mean? I call you brilliant all the time. I tell you how smart I think you are. I think you're smarter than you think you are. And that's why I didn't think it was a thing, because I'm like, this man knows I think he's intelligent. So why would me teasing about him being dumb for not remembering something I said 3 times is gonna offend him? Like, that's how I saw it. But now that I know, we don't do it no more.
You said something actually pretty interesting about it seems to be people who are single who have a certain perception of the other gender. And we spoke about why.
Not all the time, but
yeah,
it
not
seems
all
like
the time.
majority.
Yeah, so I gave my interpretation of I think it's insecurity. Why do you think that is? Why is it
Why
that
do I think it's insecurity?
right? It's the single people, or not all the time again, but it's the single people who tend to have that
Mindset?
perception. Yeah.
Honestly, I think single people are more guarded because once you're in a committed relationship, you kind of can breathe a little bit better because you build that trust and you know who you're with. And so being with a person that's right for you, who you view as a good person, will naturally change your perception on certain things when it comes to that gender because they're that gender. And being in a relationship with a person also allows you to see the other person's perspective. Like, there's a lot of situations that we've discussed that if we weren't in a relationship, we probably wouldn't understand it. And so because we're in a relationship with each other and we're working on our relationship consistently, we understand the opposite gender's perspective. If I was 19 and I was walking around saying like men are dumb, my experience with men is not in a committed, healthy relationship. My experience with men is just what I hear from other people, what I see on TV, what I see out in the open. And I don't have a man to explain to me his perspective. But that has changed because we're in a relationship and I can have that conversation with you now. And I think it's the same vice versa. So I think single people are really just guarded. Because they're guarded, they're unable to have certain type of conversations that allows them to be open-minded. Because when you're guarded, it's literally that you kind of put yourself in a cage and you're just like, yeah, nothing's getting in. These are my views. This is my perspective until the right person comes in with the right key, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that might be what it is. And naturally, when you're guarded, you slowly become insecure, even if you aren't, in my opinion.
I would say, from a man's point of view, one of the first lessons we learn about men in the Bible is it's not good for men to be alone. So it's easy for a man to think that you don't need anyone. Media and movies and shows, they make it seem like a man is happier if he's alone, but actually studies show that it's the opposite.
I know.
Married men are happier. Realistically, for both men and women, you don't need to like the entire gender.
You don't.
You just got to focus on that one person.
That's it.
That one person. So even if you truly believe men are dumb, just find yourself that one man that's not dumb. And just focus on them. That you don't think is dumb. And just focus on that. Because if you're always looking at what the media is saying, you're never gonna want to be in a relationship. If you're in a relationship, you're not gonna want to stay in a relationship. Right. You're gonna think that I'm gonna be single the rest of my life. When I truly believe when you have that mindset, you're building a prison for yourself.
With that conversation, my goal is really to remind people that, like, we're better united than we are segregated. While the conversation was focused mainly on like relationships, I really don't think it's just a relationship thing. I've always had guy friends and I feel like I've benefited a lot in that way. Like, there are a lot of perspectives that I have or things that I'm aware of that I'll have conversations with certain girlfriends and I'll realize like they're not aware of it. And it's because I was able to have conversations with men. So it's not just a relationship thing. I think it's really all about surrounding yourself with right people. Because I think I know a lot of dope guys. They're not perfect. They have their own flaws in their own ways. I didn't date them, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the thing too. When you're dating someone, it's different from when you have a different type of relationship with them. That's what it boils down to me. Like, if you are surrounded by trash men and women, you are always going to have that perspective that men are trash or women are trash. But if you surround yourself, if you make sure that you aren't trash and you keep yourself surrounded by others who are not trash, your mindset is going to change. That doesn't mean that there isn't trash out there, but you are not seeing it on a day-to-day. So your perspective is going to change. And I think that's really what it boils down to me. We balance each other. We need each other, whether it's a father, brother, cousin, friend, husband, whatever. I truly think women and men cannot thrive without one another. You can survive, but you definitely will not thrive. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at Noirpoise Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.